It seems that there's a lot of change going on at West Ham at the moment, and I'm going to be honest with you, Riley, mate. I actually think it's for the better. I really do, and I'm even including the Declan Rice sale in that. I do think this gives opportunity for the club to be a bit of a refresh. So we just want to do a bit of a video on that, really. Just have a bit of a chat about the changes that are going on at West Ham. I see it personally as a bit of an exciting summer. I know some fans are feel a bit different about that and quite anxious about it. I'm actually quite the opposite. I feel quite optimistic. Firstly, Riley, mate, what are your feelings? Are you feeling quite optimistic looking ahead to this summer, or are you on the apprehensive side?
No, I'm feeling quite optimistic, to be honest. I think, like you, I think the Declan Rice sale it is going to take a hit for the club, but I think we've done it in the right way. Like, we haven't sort of fallen at the first hurdle. We've been strong with our valuation. Even now, with the valuation met, the terms of the instalments and stuff, David Sullivan's being really, really strong on. So I'm glad that someone's not just chucked 80 or 90 million pounds and we've said, oh, okay, he wants to leave, so we'll keep it at that. It's nice to see that for once we're trying to get an actual good valuation of one of our players. The same way, Scamacca, we said, we won't sell him unless we make the 35 million pounds back that we already basically spent. Whereas in the past, you've seen players like Haller get bought for 35, 40 and then get sold for 20. Same with Felipe Anderson.
Yeah.
So I think that's very encouraging for the club. And obviously the players we're looking at the moment, there's not really many that I'm looking at where I'm thinking, I really don't want them to come to the club. My only worry is that maybe we're waiting too long potentially. But obviously, I think X mentioned that the 1st of July is the rumoured date for Tim to start getting to work. Obviously, we don't know. It's not been confirmed by anyone just as of yet. But I think that's obviously what we're waiting for him to come in and implement his sort of vision. But it's good to see that we're getting like a proper technical director in, someone who was wanted by elite clubs, Spurs included, has been at Leverkusen, signing the likes of Kai Havertz. So, it's definitely encouraging times at West Ham at the moment, and I'm definitely optimistic for this summer.
Yeah, me too. I mean, there's a lot of changes. I think there's a few that we talked about Declan Rice. I think that. Look, you can't just try and gloss over it and pretend it's brilliant. I mean, because losing your best player and your captain, you can't really pretend that is a really good thing for the club. Ideally, of course, we'd much rather Declan say, no, this is my future. I'm staying at West Ham and we build around him. But we've known about that for quite some time, that he was likely to move on. He's been offered deals at West Ham. This is not like he's not done a pie yet and suddenly comes to the end of the season going, right, I'm off, and we've all had to deal with it. We've had enough time to prepare for this. Yes, it's painful, but that's just the emotional side of it. In terms of the actual deal itself, like you say, Riley, I'm actually really impressed with West Ham at the moment. I don't know what's going on. I mean, it's hard to sort of pinpoint what's happening. I've got my suspicions. I've got a feeling that there's more to this than meets the eye, in terms of West Ham are behaving a bit better, or we're just bringing a director of football in. I actually starting to feel. We'll talk about this a bit more in another video. I actually starting to think there's new ownership on the way. And I'm wondering whether their hands are in on a lot of what's going on, whether they're being a little bit, they're guiding what they would like to see at the club. I don't know, because it just seems such a significant change. Like you touched on it, the Declan Rice sale. Don't forget David Sullivan's the same. This is the same David Sullivan that sold Payet for like 20 million. Just desperately had to get rid of him because the player wanted to go. We've seen us sell players over time. Marko Arnautovic, we sold for peanuts. We've sold players for such minimal cost because we just so desperate to get rid of them. Whereas all of a sudden now we're taking our time. We're sticking to our guns. No, this is what we want. Even today, as we record this video, the deal wasn't done yet with Arsenal. Yes, it's getting closer, but David Sullivan has stuck to his guns. Now, I wonder whether that's a Tim Steidten. Is he involved in the sale? Possibly not. I don't know. But you just get the feeling that there's some changes happening at the club and the way that we're operating. So, as you say, new era, new captain. We're going to do a separate video on the captain side of things. I think we're going to have a new front line. We're going to get back to the video really shortly, but I just want to let you know this video is actually sponsored by NordVPN. Now, NordVPN are a private network that allow you as a fan to watch games from the comfort of your own home. You can change the region that you're in. It also allows you to watch films, TV shows, things like that. Now, the other big thing is it's also on travel costs. So being West Ham, where you're in Europe again, and also you might want to go on holiday, but you can also save some money on your flights, on your hotels, things like that. It's really worth it. And look, for the monthly subscription, okay, it's less than a pint or a coffee a month. Now, if you go to the link below and using nordvpn.com/West Ham Way, you get 4 months free, completely free. And also after that, you get a 30-day money back guarantee. So just click on the link, go on it, give it a try, see what you think. Anyway, back to the video. Now, with the Tim Steidten approach, right, I would usually be quite anxious about this. If someone said to me, West Ham are going to sell Antonio and sell Scamacca, let's just say that happens. I'm not saying that's going to happen, but let's just say that's going to happen. I'd usually be crapping myself. I'll be honest. I'd be now thinking, oh my God, who are we going to end up with? We're not going to have a bloody striker next season. We're not going to do. With Steidten coming in, I don't know, that you kind of get the feeling that this man's going to come in and know what strikers we're going to get. He knows the players that are going to fit our system. He knows what's going to be happening. And that gives you a bit of comfort in thinking that it's more likely than not these players will be successful. Whereas, like we look at our recruitment previously, and we were talking about this just before we started recording. If you look back at our track record, it's always felt very scattergun. It's always felt like, right, we need a striker. Let's put 20 bids in for all the strikers that are available as best as we can, and we'll just see who accepts it, and then we'll get the one that accepts. You know what I mean? We've never felt like it's a pinpointed, that's the guy for us, and that's the only one we want. So I'm feeling quite optimistic about that. I think that the Tim Steidten appointment, now as we record this is on the 1st, so this is Saturday morning. As far as I understand it, I think it's going to be very soon. It's going to be confirmed, and I think it's due that he's starting Monday. He's starting to work, but we don't know for certain. But that seems to be the case. But overall, mate, I'm like you. I'm quite optimistic. I actually see this as quite an exciting time for West Ham. A new type of West Ham now that operates properly, because it's not only that. It's not a system that hasn't worked before, because it's a model that other clubs use. Do you know what I mean? It's not as if West Ham are trying something. We're not reinventing the wheel. We're not going, right, we're doing something completely radical here. A lot of clubs have a director of football. A lot of clubs operate this way, have people that know the markets, they know what they want, and the managers work under them effectively. They'll say, these are the players I'm going to give you, and you've got to make it work. The interesting thing I want to talk to you, Riley, is about David Moyes in this. Where does he fit in your eyes? Do you think, because bearing in mind, this is the same David Moyes that doesn't listen to his coaches. He literally won't listen to Kevin Nolan when he says, this is what we should do on the pitch. We've talked about it this season, I think at Fulham away, where Nolan came up to him with an iPad, and he then just basically told him to leave him alone. And Nolan threw the iPad at the floor. So David Moyes is notoriously known for being not control freak, but he's the manager. He runs the show. He's the ultimate decision maker. He's the one that picks the signings. He's the one that picks everything. Effectively, now he's got a new boss. He's got someone come in and say, no, I'm telling you who we're getting. Where do you think David Moyes fits in this, Riley? Do you think that he's going to be utterly happy with this situation? Or do you think this is going to be, is this a sign that maybe we're going to be pushing you out, David, and your last year of your contract? What's your feelings on it?
Well, I still feel like he'll get a big say in transfers. I feel like a director of football is can put his input in, but can he really override the manager to such a degree? If the manager says, I don't want this player at all, he's going to make him sign him. I don't think that's necessarily how it would work. I think David Moyes would get a decent say in the transfers and stuff, and I think he's got the full backing of Sullivan. I think he was forced into the idea of sacking him last year, not even trying to sack him. I think he was forced into the idea of it because of where we sat in the table and then the fans' kind of reaction to it. I don't think he ever wanted to sell him, and I think if he'd have known that we were going to finish like a point above the relegation zone, he'd have been happy to keep David Moyes for that entire season and let him do what he wants to do. It's very clear that the two have a very good relationship. So I highly doubt that with the director of football coming in, it's because he wants to push David Moyes out. I could be wrong. Obviously, director of football is quite a modern sort of thing to bring into a football club. And as we know, David Moyes is a little bit more old school, very stubborn, doesn't really like the newfangled sort of stuff. Probably struggled under Rob Newman, really struggled to get to grips with Warburton as well. Obviously, having like two managers there. So potentially he could get pushed out. I know he's not very good at receiving orders and getting input from certain people who are literally there to help him. But I would imagine that Steidten is into help Moyes, and he's not into. I can't see Sullivan trying to push him out after the year he's just had with him.
No, I mean it's going to be an interesting concept, I think, for David Moyes. At the end of the day, he's going to have to buy into it, or he won't be in the club. That I think that's quite. At the end of the day, the technical director effectively is sitting above Moyes. I know what you're saying, and I do agree with you. I do think that David Moyes has to have a big say in the transfers, but ultimately, Steidten's come in to bring in this new era of football. He's gonna have his list of players that he wants to bring to the club. He's gonna know who the striker is going to be. He's going to know who's going to want as a defensive midfielder. I mean, we talk about Zakaria or Zakaria, however you pronounce it. That looks like the most likely at the moment in terms of defensive midfielder. Now, it's well known that he wanted him while he was at Leverkusen, that he was working to bring him to the club and couldn't get the deal through for whatever reason, and he ended up going to Juventus. So the fact is now suddenly West Ham are really in for him, and Steidten's coming. It kind of gives you the feeling that this is a Steidten appointment. This isn't Moyes. This is Steidten said that's the defensive midfielder we want. So it's going to be interesting. What I do quite like about it, in a sense, though, and this is where I kind of think, and we'll talk about this a bit more in another video. My gut feeling is that Steidten is the main man, effectively. I think David Moyes is, David Sullivan has hired him for this role. And I get the feeling that because of what we've just achieved at West Ham in terms of the trophy and David Moyes, and the fact that they haven't offered him another deal yet, and he's in his last year, the club are going to kind of just see how this plays out, I reckon. Just say, right, Steidten, you're the ones. Yeah, as you say, David Moyes will have a say in it. I'm sure he will. But ultimately, it will be Steidten, I think, is going to make the final big decisions. And if it doesn't work out, I imagine they know who the next manager is going to be as well. I imagine Steidten's probably got that idea and saying that's who the guy we're going to work with next. Do you know what I mean?
Without planning that far ahead. I mean, we're West Ham Football Club, mate. I hardly doubt
that's what I'm saying, though, but that's why you've got the technical director, because that's what he'll be doing. He'll be in charge of the manager. That's his remit. So I reckon he will know anyway and say, look, we kind of know who we're going to be getting in. This is what I think that West Ham now are going to be more forward planning. Hence why I don't think David Moyes will get a new deal unless, of course, David Moyes completely buys into Steidten. It works really well. And then let's say in the first by Christmas, we're in the top 6. Then maybe the club might go, do you know what? We're offered David Moyes a new deal. But my gut feeling is they're kind of already planning ahead and thinking, yeah, this will be your last year possibly. And then we'll get someone else in. That's my gut feeling. I might be completely wrong here, but I just think that West Ham are going for a lot of change. And as we said, mate, I actually think it's a good thing. It's at last you feel like there's some planning going on at West Ham rather than this sort of knee-jerk, quick, we don't really know what we're doing. We need a striker. I don't know who we're getting, or we need someone else. I mean, it feels now that we've got a real coherent plan going forward. I can't be more excited, mate, really. I really am looking forward to it. Yes, losing Rice is a bad one, but I think with the money we've got there, Steidten's got a lot of money to play with as well, which I don't think he's ever had before, that kind of level of money. So overall optimistic. Is that your feeling still then? You're still feeling pretty good about it, mate?
Yeah, I mean, look at what he built at Leverkusen. He built a very, very exciting young team over there. Like I said, elite clubs are after him. So, and it does feel like a move in the right direction. Maybe he'll be the type of person that will sit down and say, no, we're actually doing this wrong. Why have we been doing this for years? And obviously, he's already got a big long list of targets. I would hope that they've got another manager in waiting in the wings and. They got all this forward planning and candidates, but it just seems so un-West Ham, doesn't it, to be honest, mate?
Yeah.
But for me, I think this is like one of the most pivotal moments in our history at the moment. About to lose our star player. We've got Europa League football who knows? This could be the last time in the next few years. If we don't get this right, this could be the last time in the next few years. And the European pool is absolutely massive. So if we can recruit, properly and use the Declan Rice money smartly and get a decent manager and a decent marriage together with our director of football, even if that is a technical director, even if that is David Moyes, this is really going to set us up for the future.
Couldn't agree more, mate. I really do think that this is a good time for West Ham. No two ways about it in my mind.